Welcome
What is
to the
going on,
stream.
gentlemen?
What's going on?
There he is.
Hey.
There he is.
Good to see you.
Look, you're looking fantastic. You got the lighting. You got the real mic.
That's
you
a fantastic suit.
You look like a professional.
Yeah, clearly a professional.
I had to show up right. I wanted to come here and just lay down a gauntlet. I'm not a technology brother, but I would like to be the technology cousin, perhaps.
Yes.
Technology
Fantastic.
uncle. I'm still workshopping names, but
I honestly
has to
like
be
I like Uncle.
Uncle is hilarious.
Because you've got that sort of elder,
elder statesman.
That's what I'm going for.
Like, yeah, no, that's perfect.
That's fantastic.
It's great to have you on, and the audio is. And I hate to throw shade at Justin Mares, who was on 5 minutes ago, but it's just night and day difference. It's great to have the sound.
Yeah, a real professional on, a gentleman scholar.
It's not my first podcast, gentlemen.
Let's go.
What's on your mind today? Maybe let's start there. I don't think we need to introduce you. We can just dive right into it.
Oh, I just think what you guys are doing is genius. So I needed to first come on and give you some flowers for that.
Thank you. Man.
I think innovative is an understatement. I think we need to just acknowledge what is actually happening here. Andrew Tate might have been the first, but you guys are the second to say, hey, I'm going to create a podcast. And the podcast is nothing. The podcast is just feedstock for the shorts, for the clips.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is a core insight that you guys have pounced on. You're doing great with the branding. Love it. Love everything you're doing.
That's what Jordy said. He said, I want to be the Andrew Tate of technology. And so I said, I can make that happen. I have experience in YouTube.
And John is also, John's dream is to be a Harry Potter fan
fan fiction. Yes, that's the riff we have going.
Well, we can talk Harry Potter. I can go deep on Harry Potter if you want. But Jordy, I think that Andrew Tate is trying to be the Jordy of felons and brothel owners or whatever he does, girl sites.
Well, the funny thing, it was weird timing, but Andrew Tate showed back up in the U.S. and then there was that lawsuit against passes, and that was sort of like potentially convenient timing. It seems like he might be, kind of trying to enter the U.S. market.
Well, competition is for losers.
Anyways, we don't want to compare ourselves.
Regulatory capture.
I actually, so one of the things I'm like super curious about, your content creator yourself, you have the podcast. What's your information diet? Like something that John and I talk about a lot is our show is heavily based on what's happening right now, what the current thing is. We obviously focus on X as a platform, but if you're only consuming content on X, then you're not injecting anything sort of new, and you're just like part of the hive mind. How do you think about your information diet, and kind of where do you spend your time kind of coming up with ideas?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that the information diet is probably like today something that only nerds like us talk about, but is going to become a very popular concept as people realize that it's garbage in, garbage out. So, I think the problem that the tech guys have is we will all go consume not necessarily garbage content, but just the same content, right? So we're all on X, we're all reading the same things, we're listening to All In and listening to the same podcasts. Yep. And then guess what? You have the same thoughts as everybody else. And while calling yourself a contrarian, right? It doesn't really make sense. And so, for me, I do a couple of things. So I have a phrase that I like, which is kids, dogs, and dead people. And I want to spend as much of my time as I can with kids, dogs, and dead people. And, so what does that mean? Kids will teach you a certain set of things. So kids are highly playful. They work with their imagination a lot. They're completely delusional. They have no idea of what's realistic and what's not. And so the more time you spend with kids, the more playful you become, the more imaginative you become, the more delusional you become. So I take that from them. Dogs are sort of these unconditional lovers, right? Dogs are always down, always loyal, always happy. They're there for you in every way. And so, pick that up from dogs. And the last is the dead people. So how do I change my ratio of tweets to books, right? Because, long form, as everyone gets interested in consuming long form, I sort of wanted to go the opposite way. People get interested in consuming short form. I want to consume as much long form as I can. So whether it's old videos on YouTube, like I watched this thing with Max Levchin from 2004 talking about, and I was like, this is fantastic. And it has 89 views on YouTube. And so, you start to get excited about being a collector of pieces, right? It's like, oh, this is a wonderful old memo when they first pitched PowerPoint at Microsoft, or this is a great book. I read this book recently called Talk Like, what was it? It was Stand Like Lincoln, Talk Like Churchill. And it was just like about like public speaking and just being a goddamn man and the way you show up to things. And I was like, this is fantastic. And so awesome. I'm trying to spend as much time as I can with dead people.
It's great.
Great answer.
Can you take us through the triangle of talent? I really love this. We printed this off here because I think it's a fantastic framework for elevating talent within an organization. We're a small company here, but I wanted, like, what inspired you to map this out this way, and what do you think people are taking away from it? How's the reception been?
Every blog post I write is just a pot shot at somebody. Yep. it's an annoyance from an employee in my company, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to write this over here. I hope you read this. I hope you really understand this. That's the honest truth. Is irritation is the itch, and innovation is the scratch, as I like to say.
You know, Steve Jobs had a line we just talked about earlier on the show. He told his team, I hope what you just did makes you hate each other.
Yeah, you should hate each other for doing this because they messed up the mobile
email rollout.
The email syncing, and it went so poorly that Apple was looking terrible in 2008, and he was like, "You guys should hate each other for this." It's so bad. Anyway,
so the real insight here actually came when I sold my company. So I sold my company and I went from CEO to now I was an employee.
Yeah.
So I'm on the other side of the table, and I was trying to figure out like, oh, this is interesting. Like, now I have a boss, I have a manager. What does this guy care about? And how does he think about me? And like, what's this dynamic like? And what I realized was that in every company, there's like this little number floating above your head, and it's your trust score. It's like, whatever, that movie where it's like how many days you have left to die or whatever, and you could see it on each other's forehead or something like that.
Yeah. Very Black Mirror.
It's like a Black Mirror, like Death Note or something like that.
Yeah.
So the thing I realized was that basically for the CEO, they look at all their employees and there's just a trust score. And the trust score is basically like, can I trust you to be watching out for problems and identifying them yourself? Mm-hmm. Or am I going to have to deliver like the issues to you? I'm going to have to be the one telling you, hey, we got to solve this. And then even if I did do that if I gave you the problem, do I trust that you'd be able to solve it? Do I trust that you could manage like a group of people in solving this? Or can I only give you things that are like small bite size where you can alone do it? Right. Do I have to give you the instructions on how to solve it, or could you figure it out? Right. So everybody's got this trust score, and you want to be at 100%, right? Like you want to be at 100. And those are the people ultimately they get the raises, they get the opportunities. When the new thing comes up, that's who you put on the project is the people you trust the most. And really like your trust score goes far beyond like your job title. And I realized this when I was working with Emmett at Twitch.
Yeah.
And so then in my own companies, I sort of realized like, okay, could I like assign some numbers to that score? Could I assign some levels to that score? And so, yeah, that's where the triangle comes from. I don't know if you want me to like say what the levels are.
I'd love to know, like, obviously when you're the CEO, if you're selling your company, you're probably operating at level 5 superstar, but then you go into Twitch, you said it was a very different environment. Did you feel yourself moving downward towards like level 4 or level 3?
Yeah, there's gravity. The gravity is moving you downwards, right? Totally. Because you're supposed to, like if you go to these big companies, you're not the CEO or the founder anymore. Not all the problems don't roll up to you. All the opportunities aren't your decision whether you're going to do them or not. And so gravity is kind of pulling you down to get to like kind of like a level 3, which is like a bit of you're just a sort of a task doer, or maybe you can manage a team of people to do a set of tasks. But I was just like trying to fight that. So like I had a great conversation with my buddy Furkan when we got acquired. And he was pulled up the company metrics, like the company dashboard. And he's like the CEO view, basically. And he's like, which one of these numbers do you think our project will move? And I was like, I was just thinking of, they bought our company to do X. We should come here and do X. And what he was arguing was like, cool, that made sense when we were trying to sell this company to them. Of course, we wanted to say how big of a deal it was. But now that we're here, we're on the same team. We should just be more objective. Like, is our thing going to move any of these metrics? And he goes, don't you just think like whatever we do while we're here, we should just be able to move one of these KPIs like 5 or 10%. And like, we should just make that our budget. Like, we're not going to do a project if it can't move the needle 5 or 10% on one of the like the core metrics, usage, revenue, profits. Right. So, and I looked at what we were doing. It was never going to do that. Even if we did it really well, it would never have moved any of those metrics. And so I literally just didn't do any of the work I was supposed to do for about a month. I just started walking around the office, asking people like, what's going on over here? Like, what are the problems are you dealing with? What's something that somebody should be doing that nobody's doing right now? Or what's something that's worrying you? And our buddy Hubert, who sold Curse to Twitch, he was there, and he was like this guy who had been like ringing this bell that nobody was listening to. And he's like, hey, look at this. Our market share in Brazil has dropped like dramatically and nobody cares. Nobody's doing anything about this. And he's like, it's because mobile gaming, uh, it's all mobile gaming over there, streaming from their phone. And we don't even have like the functionality to do that. And internally at the company, we'd all written off mobile game streaming as like something that wasn't a thing because we tried it. It didn't work. Nobody watched Candy Crush and we all moved on. But hey, something has changed and here's the data. So we only started working on that. So that was kind of my real life experience of not letting myself go from a level 5 to a level 3 because that's where the gravitational pull was, and like trying to fight to be like, no, I'm gonna try to identify the biggest problems and I'm gonna try to go solve them.
That makes a ton of sense. I want to talk about branding. When we launched this show, I was very obsessed with like the growth hacks and the quote tweets and the clips, as you mentioned. But you came to me and you said, I think the fact that you guys have really thought about the brand, and Jordy was the one who really thought about the brand the most. But what is your playbook for developing a new brand? What's your stack? Who's in the room? Are you using AI tools? Is it starting a PowerPoint or a doc or a notes app? Like, how do you think about developing a brand? What are the best practices these days?
Yeah, it starts with a very simple principle, which is all positioning is counter positioning. So you want to position yourselves in the consumer's mind, but it's always going to be relative to what's already in the consumer's mind.
Yep.
So you might say, we are a restaurant. We make food that's healthy and fresh. It's like, great, but everybody says the same things. So not only have you blended in, but you're not counter positioned to anything. Versus if you say, we make yoga pants like Lululemon, except for ours aren't full of microplastics, right? Now you've counter positioned against Lululemon. So you say, we're athleisure, we're premium, but no microplastics, right? So it's the but that matters the most. Whereas everybody focuses on the things before the but. They're like,
totally,
we're this, and this. Yeah, that too. We're open source too. Yeah, we do that too. And they just try to add this long list and it becomes this very muddy drink. And so I think what you guys did, just look at your brand, right? So you guys are counter positioned in a cool way, right? So first, you're like very masculine brand. So you're not neutral, where I think most people are afraid to have any sort of like first of all, masculinity was like not cool for a while. Now it's cool again. It's on trend. But like, I think you guys do a good job. You show up in suits. So you're counter positioned. You're not a podcaster in their bedroom wearing a hoodie, right? I wore this is like a wedding outfit I had from like an old Indian wedding. I was like, I got to dress right because you've created a brand that says that's how we behave here. We're gentlemen here. Right. You have this aesthetic, right? But it's all counter positioned. It would not work if every podcast already looked the way you look. Wouldn't be any, you would get no credit for it.
The other example that's relevant is like there's a very popular podcast that we're fans of that notoriously does not run ads, and it'll be obvious. It's the #1 technology podcast in the world. They don't run ads. So we came out and we said, we're going to run a bunch of ads.
Yeah, we're doing it for the money. Most podcasters, we just like the community, just the reach. And we happen to run ads. And we were like, we're doing this for the money. It's the most profitable podcast.
And it was it was
fun.
It was just for fun. About
there's one other in the branding thing that's important is you're only going to get credit for what's weird.
Sure. Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
You should make a list of what's weird about you or about your brand or that you do that's unusual. That might even be like controversial. It might even be that it's unpopular or people would say that's too far, too much. And so like, if you want to have a strong brand, start writing a list of what's weird. And if that list is only 1 or 2 things long, you're not going to have much really to talk about.
We talked to a founder yesterday at Demo Day who pitched, and he just named his company Pig. It's just called Pig, and he's like, I just like it. It was like I honestly thought it was a great name.
It was a great name.
Nobody's gonna forget. I don't remember any of the other names.
It was very hard to remember.
And I remember Pig. It's a great name.
And he just roll around in the mud.
Yep.
And I actually remember what he does. He does like this like data integration, like cleaning up like legacy code bases, like very much like rolling around in the mud. Like he's not afraid to get dirty. Just solo founder just comes in and cleans up your code base. He's just the pig.
Talk about the opportunity around investing in creators and creator businesses. I think you've talked about sort of the Mr. Beast empire quite a lot. There's, Slow Ventures came out recently. They have a dedicated creator fund. You are a creator that's sort of creating value in all these different ways. What do you think the opportunity is in that space? And are you making investments there yourself?
I think the bigger opportunity is the creators investing, not investing in creators. So, like like our business is very simple, right? So we have this podcast, My First Million, and as it grew, we had sponsors who wanted to come in and sponsor it. And we said yes for a while. We got really excited, like, oh my God, this is crazy. We're getting paid to talk. But then you realize like media is a pretty shit business model. And so the trick is to do media to build media is great at a few things, right? It's great at building brand and distribution and awareness and all those things, but it's pretty terrible at monetizing. And so the trick is to monetize with investing. And so what we did was I would go private equity style and so I bought a piece of this business, somewhere.com. It's like a offshore hiring platform. So you need talent in the Philippines or you want a developer in LATAM, like get somebody for 5 times less than you will in the States, right? That's the pitch. So instead of them just sponsoring us and me taking ad dollars and then them getting obviously some multiple of that, otherwise why would they keep giving us ad dollars, right? They're clearly getting an ROI off of that. I went and I actually just purchased a chunk of the company and said, great, now I own a piece of this company. I own the equity in it and I will grow this company. I could buy it even at a totally fair price, right? I don't need a deal because if it's at this much, and when we bought that business, it was making millions a year in profit.
Wow.
So like it was already multiple 7 figures of profit. And now it's 8 figures of profit, right? Because I was able to grow that using my audience. So I was my own private equity. And the beauty of this is that media knows a lot about audience and distribution and growth, but it knows nothing about private equity. Private equity knows a lot about doing deals and knows nothing about media and distribution and growth. And so marrying the two together is what's actually happening. So Hormozy is doing this, right?
Yeah.
That's his model. I'm doing this. That's our model. And so there will be more people who do this. Right now, what the creators are doing is they're just creating their own brand and they're trying to monetize by being operational. I think the smart ones will eventually just take chunks of companies and let the operators, like world-class operators, do that work, and they will be just doing deals.
What do you think of the Doug DeMuro cars and bids story? It's one of my favorites, but is it a one-off exception to the rule, or do you think it's the start of something new and a bigger trend?
No, I mean, that's going to keep happening, right? Right now, Epic Gardening is the best example of this. You guys watching what he's doing?
No, not really. Break it down.
Okay, so Epic Gardening, basically he's got this YouTube channel about freaking gardening, right? So he's like,
so niche, but it's great.
He's growing. He's like, I'm trying to grow like a new breed of zucchini, and he's like trying to do. And you look, and he's got this farm, whatever. So he's so I think his name's Kevin. So Kevin is doing this. So what he's doing is he's amazing at content, and he keeps creating really awesome content. And then on the back end, he started either building his own products or buying. So he bought like a seeds company. So there's a seed company, was doing X dollars in revenue already. He's able to go acquire that company knowing he's got better distribution than that company has, right? He's got something they don't have. He's got a giant megaphone to millions of people who are trying to learn gardening from him. They like, listen, and trust him. And so when he says, use these seeds, they're going to use those seeds. When Jimmy says, buy this chocolate, they're going to buy that chocolate. And so like, that's the model that he's doing right now. And so what happened is Chernin went and gave him tens of millions of dollars of money. And what he's doing is both building up his own infrastructure and his own products, but he's going out and being very acquisitive, and he's acquiring companies that, his customers his audience would be customers of. Very simple model. I think that guy, if he does this right, he could build $1 billion company as a gardening YouTuber.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Unthinkable a decade ago. Right.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah. I feel like Chernin, to their credit, was like very early to that trend. Like it seems like it's becoming very much a part of the zeitgeist now, but I know they were doing it. They were thinking about this stuff very intensely, like almost a decade ago. How do you think about your own personal leverage in the age of AI? You've been somebody that's had a lot of leverage, I think, for a long time, right? You've sort of a major shareholder in multiple businesses. You have the audience. You're starting new companies. You're buying companies. But has your level of ambition sort of 10x, with some of these new technologies? Obviously, the potential hasn't been fully, isn't fully here, but it's clearly coming. And how does that impact sort of your personal roadmap and how you're thinking about your career?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think for me over time, you're right that like you start to learn the leverage game. Okay, so what is the leverage game? The leverage game is with the same or even fewer inputs, can you get more outputs, right? It's a magic trick. I put less effort in, or I put less time in, or I put less capital in. Can I get more out? And so how do you do it? Naval says it well. He says, there's the old ways of leverage, which would be like, people. So you hire people, they do the work. So, you hire them, you get, thousands of hours of work done by other people. Great. There's capital, which is investing. Cool. So I've, been doing that. But now he's like, there's the new ones, there's code and there's media, right? Code is, basically a worker that will work, like what you think about a landing page, right? A landing page is basically a salesman that's, awake 24/7, giving the perfect pitch that you told him to give with no sick days to every customer everywhere in the world and can do thousands of customers at once. That's what a landing page is. So that's leverage, and that's code. And now media is what we do with the podcast. So yeah, I've been dabbling with these different things. With AI, I don't think it's like I don't think it's an entirely new form of leverage. It's more speed and reps. So I'll give you an example. Right now, I have this book series that I'm creating, and I think the old way to write a book, and one of the reasons I didn't want to write a book, is if you talk to anybody who writes a book, they're like, it's like they went to Nam, dude. There's like, this multi-year period where it was just a grind every single day, and it's just this terrible experience.
Yeah.
And so I'm writing a book right now, and here's literally what I was doing right before this. So this is my conversation with Claude. So I create this little folder, and I say, hey, Claude, I'm creating a book. Here's the premise. And I said, inside this folder, you will find an outline. You'll find some of my old samples of writing. I want you to copy my tone of voice and a style guide, some of the do's and don'ts of how I think about writing this book. And I said, right now I have a loose outline, and really I know kind of what chapter 1 should be all about. And I said, draft it. It drafts it. And so it's basically the equivalent of having a research assistant and a writing assistant, but who has no emotions or feelings. So it just gives me the draft. I'm like, nah, I don't really like it, and I don't really have any specific feedback. Just like try again, and it just does it again. It does it again. Like if I told somebody on my team that if they worked hard and drafted this thing over 2 days and they came to me, I'd have to like do the freaking compliment sandwich and be like, it's really good. There's some areas for improvement.
Yep.
Would you mind doing this? And now it's going to take a week, and then he's going to go back. And every draft is like just a small feud that's developing between me and this person, right?
It's a great
And so I had ended up having to write it myself, and really having that feud internally also. And there'd be many days where I'd wake up and see that blank page and be like, oh, do I really want to do this? Right. So this AI process where I'm like, I wake up and I'm like, give me a draft of the chapter. I don't like that first example. Find me another example that has very similar characteristics. Boom, it finds another one. Come up with a better analogy. Hey, you're being too wordy. And it's just, I'm getting draft after draft after draft. Try this one in the style of Malcolm Gladwell. Like, to me, this is magic what's happening. I'm writing this book. I got a full draft of the book in one night just by going back and forth with Claude. It was unbelievable.
That's amazing.
And now all the values in the edits. It's the taste. It's the curation at the end.
And yeah, you putting your stamp on it.
Yeah. On the book thing, have you taken anything from the 5 Types of Wealth by our buddy Sahil Bloom? It feels like he did a really good job of creating infographics that could go viral, and he's kind of the Andrew Tate of publishing now, in the sense that the book is its own thing, but it's clippable. It's clippable, which is like, it's rare for a book to think about that. Are you thinking clip first now? How are you thinking about that?
I don't like to start with growth hacks because I think it leads you the wrong way.
Sure.
I think I have this channel on my Slack called Clues. And you take note of the clues, and the time will come where you go back through that. You say, you know what? I did notice that, hey, having a couple of killer diagrams really made the book more shareable, because you're not sharing a book and saying, read this book. You're sharing a killer page or a killer visual. And people then ask, wow, how do I get more of that? What book is that? Right. So you keep that as a clue, but I think you can't let that drive the creative process. This is a little bit uppity, but I just think there's you got to decide, am I going to try to engineer this, or am I trying to art this? And I think if you're doing art, you should art it. And there's a time and a place for that engineering of virality or more sellability, but I don't want to A/B test my way into art, because I'm not doing this for money anyways, right? Like if I wanted to, I might make money from a book, but the way I say it is, it's like, just because a church serves food doesn't mean you go there because you're hungry. That's not why you go to church. So it's like, if you're going to write a book, you should be doing it because you have something killer to say and you think you can deliver that message. That's the main thing. Let's keep that the main thing. And then, yes, we keep track of some ideas, some growth hacks, some clues that might be helpful somewhere along the way.
Well, where can people find it when it comes out? How can they make sure they're the first one to get a copy in the mail?
I'm not. I mean, I'm not even there yet. If you just follow me on Twitter, you'll see it along the way.
Fantastic.
Or my email list. ShaanPuri.com is the email list.
Well, you have to send us an advance copy. We'll read it on the stream.
We're gonna do a 24-hour live stream of us
reading
the
it
book,
cover to cover.
cover to cover.
I love it.
Yeah, a live audiobook reading cover to cover.
We need
Yes.
material
With ramp ads.
we'll put our
heavily.
own ads in.
Heavily sponsored. Audio sponsored.
Amazing having you on. You're the first technology uncle.
Yes, the first technology
and,
uncle.
Appreciate you sharing.
Uncle
your
of the
wisdom.
week.
I'm putting that in my LinkedIn right now.
Fantastic.
You're the man.
Welcome to the
You're
team.
welcome anytime. Thank you, Shaan.
All right, fellas.
Thank you.
See
We'll talk
later.
to you soon.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.